When I look back on the series of events that unfolded that summer, I can still feel the way my heart raced, as though it were yesterday. My name is Daniel Carter, and until a few years ago, I believed my life was perfectly balanced. I had a stable career, a comfortable home, and a circle of friends I thought I could trust. But one evening, everything shifted, and I found myself in a moment where truth could no longer be buried. It was raw, it was sharp, and it demanded to be revealed. The story begins in a quiet town in Ohio where I had lived for most of my adult life. I worked as a project manager for a construction firm, and my days were often filled with long hours, site visits, and managing client expectations. At 38, I wasn't married yet, though I had been in relationships that carried weight and meaning. One in particular still lingered in my chest, the kind of relationship that leaves behind invisible scars. Her name was Melissa Turner, and she had been the love of my life. Melissa was the kind of woman who lit up a room without even trying. She had auburn hair that seemed to catch every glimmer of light, a smile that could soften even the hardest moments, and a voice that carried warmth and conviction. We had dated for nearly 4 years, and for a time, I thought she was the one. But as the saying goes, not all stories end the way we hope. We broke up 2 years before the events of that summer. It wasn't because of betrayal in the conventional sense. No cheating, no secret lives. Instead, it was the slow erosion of trust, the accumulation of small lies and half-truths that eventually cracked our foundation. She had ambitions to move to Los Angeles to pursue a career in media, and I was deeply rooted in Ohio, unable to walk away from the company I had built my reputation in. Our dreams clashed, and neither of us bent far enough to meet in the middle. Yet, even after the breakup, Melissa's presence never really left my life. She remained friends with people in my circle, and through social gatherings, birthday parties, and casual barbecues, we still saw each other occasionally. We exchanged polite smiles, the kind that mask 1,000 unspoken words, but we never addressed the elephant in the room, the way we had unraveled, the truths we had avoided, and the unresolved tension that lingered in every glance. It was during one of those gatherings in July when everything finally came to the surface. A mutual friend, Jason, had invited us all to his lake house for a weekend getaway. The setting was idyllic, a sprawling wooden deck that overlooked the water, a fire pit where laughter carried into the night, and a string of fairy lights that gave the evenings a magical charm. Everyone was in high spirits, sipping drinks, grilling food, and sharing old stories. But beneath that warmth, I could feel the weight of Melissa's eyes occasionally drifting toward me, and every time they did, my chest tightened. On the second night, after most of the group had gone inside, Melissa and I ended up sitting across from each other near the fire. The crackling flames painted her face in shades of gold and amber, and for the first time in years, we were alone. There was no crowd to deflect to, no easy escape. Just her and me, and the truth that had waited too long to be spoken. She broke the silence first. "Daniel, do you ever think about us? About what happened?" Her voice was soft, but it carried an edge, as though she had rehearsed the question but still feared the answer. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the flames, and let the weight of her words settle in the night air. "All the time," I admitted. "But I think about the things we never said more than the things we did." Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see the flicker of vulnerability in them. She wanted me to say more. She wanted me to peel back the layers, to finally reveal the truth she had always known existed but had been too afraid to confront. For years, I had swallowed words I should have spoken. I had hidden parts of myself out of fear of losing her, of being misunderstood. But that night, something shifted. I was done hiding. "You want to know the truth, Melissa?" I asked, my voice firmer now. "The real truth? Not the excuses we gave, not the polite version we tell people when they ask why we didn't work out. The truth." She leaned forward slightly, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. "Yes, I want to know." And so I told her. I told her how deeply I had loved her, how every part of me had once believed we would build a life together. I told her how I had dreamed of a home filled with our laughter, of kids running through the backyard, of shared mornings and quiet nights. I confessed that I had seen my future in her, and that vision had terrified me as much as it had thrilled me. But I didn't stop there. I revealed the resentment I had buried, the way her ambition often made me feel small, the way her half-truths about her late nights in the city had chipped away at my trust. I told her about the nights I had stayed awake, wondering if I was enough for her, and the mornings I had plastered on a smile just to keep the peace. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but I kept going. I told her about the moment I knew we wouldn't last, the night she told me she was considering an opportunity in Los Angeles and dismissed my concerns as though they were trivial. I revealed the ache of realizing I wasn't a priority, that I had become a placeholder until something better came along. By the time I finished, my voice had grown raw and the fire had burned low. Melissa sat in silence, her face pale, her hands trembling. She had wanted the truth, and I hadn't held back. Finally, she whispered, "Daniel, I didn't know you felt all of that." "You didn't want to know," I replied. "You wanted the version of me that stayed quiet, that supported you no matter what, even when it broke me inside. But tonight, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." For the first time in years, the weight lifted from my chest. I had revealed the truth, not to wound her, but to free myself. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the truth isn't about reconciliation or closure. Sometimes it's simply about finally honoring your own voice. Melissa and I didn't get back together after that night. We didn't suddenly rediscover what we had lost. But what we did find was respect for the honesty, for the courage to face what had been buried, and for the strength it took to let it out. The truth didn't fix the past, but it gave me peace in the present. And that peace was worth everything.